They rolled the box into the room with a grin. A black coffin, polished but fake. Plastic handles, cheap wood, balloons tied to the side. My family clapped, whistled, laughed. "Happy 65, Dad!" someone shouted. The banner over the dining room read, "1 foot in the grave, happy birthday." My name is Thomas Carter, I'm 65, and on my own birthday, they made me the punchline. Sit back and let me tell you how they tried to bury me with a joke, and how the gift I unwrapped left the whole room silent. Before we get too far, don't forget to subscribe and let me know where you're listening from. The house smelled of barbecue and cake frosting. Balloons swayed against the ceiling. My son, Mark, held the lid open so everyone could see. "Look, Dad," he called. "We even padded it for you. Comfort matters." Laughter roared. My daughter-in-law doubled over, clutching her stomach. My own grandson, 8 years old, peeked in and laughed because everyone else did. I stood there, the cake knife still in my hand, the candle smoke curling in the air. The knife felt heavy, my chest felt heavier. "Come on, Dad," Mark said, still grinning. "Climb in, test it out." Phones lifted, screens glowed. They wanted a photo, they wanted the old man to play along. I smiled, small, just enough. "Not yet," I said quietly. The laughter softened, then picked up again, nervous this time. They thought I was being stiff, that I would give in later. They didn't see my hand tighten on the knife handle until my knuckles went white. The coffin sat there all evening, like an uninvited guest at my own party. Every time someone refilled a drink, they glanced at it and chuckled. "Don't trip, Thomas," one cousin called. "You'll fall right where you belong." I sat in my chair, smiling faintly, chewing slowly. My cake slice tasted like chalk. The jokes kept coming. "Better measure him now! Save the receipt in case he lasts longer." Even my younger sister, Clara, leaned close and whispered, "It's funny, Tom. Don't be so serious." But when I looked at her, her smile faltered. She saw something in my eyes she hadn't seen before. Later, when the room filled with chatter and drinks, I slipped away to my study. The old oak desk sat heavy under years of use. I opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a small wooden box, polished smooth by my hands over decades. I ran my thumb across the lid. I had kept it for years, waiting, not for this, not for a coffin joke, but it felt right now. I didn't open it, not yet. I only touched it, felt the weight of what waited inside, a gift, not for me, for them. I closed the drawer, locked it, went back to the noise. Mark called for a toast. He clinked his glass, smiled at the room. "To Dad," he said. 65 years young, and finally close enough to retirement homes and undertakers. "We love you." Everyone laughed, glasses raised. I raised mine too. My smile didn't slip, my hand didn't shake, but inside, the beat grew steady. Not anger, not glee, something older, patient, a rhythm that said, "Wait, let them laugh. The silence will come." The party wound down near midnight. People left in clusters, still buzzing, still chuckling about the coffin by the door. My grandson asked, "Can we keep it in the garage, Grandpa? It's funny." I patted his head gently. "We'll see." When the last car pulled away, I closed the door, leaned against it, and let the quiet sink in. The coffin sat in the living room, black against the lamplight. It looked less like a joke now, more like a shadow. I went back to the study, opened the drawer again, and placed the small wooden box on the desk. I unlocked it this time. The lid creaked. Inside lay what I had saved all these years, a set of letters, sealed. A single envelope with my name written in a hand that was not mine, and beneath it, papers no one knew I had. I touched the envelope. The paper was old, but the words inside were still sharp. They thought the coffin was the joke. They hadn't seen the real gift yet. The next morning, the coffin still sat in the living room. The curtains were half drawn, and sunlight cut across the lid. The black paint looked cheaper now, scuffed on the edges where it had been dragged in. Clara came by to help tidy after the party. She wrinkled her nose when she saw it. "They really went too far," she muttered, stacking paper plates. "Did they?" I asked. She hesitated, then gave a small shrug. It was meant to be funny. I didn't argue. I only carried the garbage bag outside, the plastic rustling against my leg. At the curb, I watched the neighbors across the street. 2 of them stood chatting, pointing at my house. One of them laughed, made a motion like lying down. The other shook her head, but she laughed too. News of the coffin had already left the house. By lunchtime, Mark returned with his wife. They wanted to help clean up. Mostly they wanted leftovers. He opened the fridge without asking, pulling out a tray of ribs. "You should have seen everyone's faces, Dad," he said between bites. "Best gag of the year. I think the video already hit 300 likes. "Video?" I asked. "Of course. Didn't you see?" Emma posted it. "You standing there like a statue while we showed the coffin. People loved it." He laughed. His wife laughed with him. I didn't laugh. "You really should loosen up," Mark added. "It's good content, better than half the junk online." I walked to the study door, hand brushing the frame. "Maybe content isn't the point," I said quietly. He didn't hear. He was too busy chewing. That evening, I took the wooden box from the drawer and set it on the desk again. My fingers rested on the lid. The letters inside seemed heavier, as though they had soaked in all the voices from the night before. I thought of my wife, gone 10 years now. She had written that envelope before she passed, sealing words I had never shared. She knew one day it would be needed. I whispered into the quiet, "Maybe today is sooner than I thought." The clock ticked steady. My heart matched it. 2 days later, Clara called. "Thomas, did you know Mark's video hit 5,000 views?" I said nothing. "They're sharing it around. Neighbors, friends, even the church group. People think it's mean, but Mark insists it's just humor. He says you're fine with it." My jaw tightened. "Did he?" "Yes," Clara said softly. "He did." I thanked her, hung up, and sat in the silence. The beat inside my chest was no longer patient. It was steady, pressing, ready. I opened the wooden box once more. The papers waited, crisp, sharp, undeniable. I took one envelope, held it up to the light. My name glowed faintly through the paper. My wife's handwriting curved strong across the front. "They will laugh," she had told me once, "but one day the laugh will end, and you'll be the one to end it." I believed her. At the end of the week, Mark invited everyone over again. "By popular demand," he grinned on the phone, "people want part 2. We thought of a new gag." I asked what. "You'll see," he said, chuckling. I hung up without replying. That night I polished the wooden box until it gleamed. I set it on the desk, closed but ready. The coffin sat in the garage now, leaned against the wall, its fake handles bent. Every time I passed it, the air seemed colder. They thought it was a joke. They thought I was the punchline. But the real gift, the one still sealed, was waiting. And when I unwrapped it, there would be no more laughter. The following Saturday, the family gathered again. Mark had called it a casual dinner. I knew better. Casual dinners didn't come with rented chairs and cheap banners strung across the dining room. This one read, 65 years down, how many left? The letters were bright red, cut from glossy paper. They hung low, brushing the tops of people's heads as they laughed and took their seats. I stepped inside to the sound of a horn blasting. My grandson ran up, grinning, and thrust a plastic scythe into my hands. "You're the Grim Reaper, Grandpa," he shouted. The room howled. Mark clapped me on the back. "Perfect fit, Dad! Hold it up!" Phones flashed, screens glowed. I lifted the scythe, not high, just enough for the picture. My smile was thin, controlled. The laughter swelled anyway. On the table sat a cake shaped like a tombstone. The icing read, R.I.P. Youth. Someone had stuck 2 candles into the top. They weren't lit. They leaned, wax bending. "Blow them out anyway," Emma called, giggling. "You won't get many more chances." The laughter doubled. I sat in my chair, the scythe resting across my lap. My fingers drummed on the plastic. Slow, steady. Dinner began with roast chicken and cheap wine. Jokes flew faster than the food. "Don't choke, Dad." "Careful, the bones are older than you." "Better not eat too much. Undertakers charge by the pound." The table roared. Clara sat near the end, lips pressed thin, fork moving food without eating. She caught my eye once, shook her head slightly. Mark raised his glass. "To Dad, 65 years of stubbornness, grumpiness, and refusing to learn how to text properly, we salute you!" They clinked glasses. I lifted mine, drank slow. When I set it down, I spoke softly. "You're right. I don't text much. Mark grinned. See? At least you admit it. I let the silence hold a second longer, then, but I do write, and some things I've written last longer than jokes. The room chuckled nervously. Mark waved a hand. Always the philosopher. Come on, Dad, lighten up. I didn't reply. After dinner, they brought out the coffin again. Dragged it from the garage, propped it against the wall. Someone had draped it with a black sheet for dramatic effect. Round two, Emma laughed. The encore performance. Mark patted the lid. Dad, it's waiting for you. Just climb in for the photo. People will love it. The room buzzed, cameras up, laughter sharp. I rose slowly, joints aching, and walked to the coffin. My hand rested on the sheet. The air smelled of dust and cheap wood. I pulled the sheet back. The lid creaked. Inside, they'd filled it with balloons, black and silver, squeaking against one another. Get in, someone shouted. Lie down, Grandpa. The room chanted, half-drunk voices pounding. In, in, in. I looked inside. The balloons bobbed, brushing my hand. My reflection wavered faintly in the cheap plastic lining. Then I closed the lid gently. Not tonight, I said. The chanting faltered. Laughter turned thin, uncertain. Mark forced a grin. Guess he's saving it for the real thing. The crowd chuckled, weak this time. I walked back to my chair, sat, folded my hands. My face stayed calm. Inside, the steady beat grew louder. Later, as people drifted to the living room with drinks, I slipped into my study. I unlocked the drawer and took out the wooden box. The lamp cast a warm circle of light on the desk. I opened the lid. The letters waited. The envelope with my name. The papers below, neat, aligned. I traced the handwriting on the envelope with my finger, my wife's hand, strong, looping strokes. Not yet, I whispered, but soon. I closed the box, slid it back, locked the drawer. My hand lingered on the key. The following week, whispers reached me everywhere. At the store, the clerk smiled too long, eyes darting to the tabloid someone had left on the counter. It showed a grainy picture of me standing by the coffin, scythe in hand, balloons spilling out. The headline read, Party Gone Dark, Family's Morbid Joke Goes Viral. At church, heads turned. Smiles were forced, polite. A man shook my hand, said, Good sport, Tom. We all need to laugh sometimes. His grip was weak. His eyes didn't meet mine. Even the mailman chuckled, tapping the box of letters in his hands. You planning on mailing yourself one of these days? I didn't answer. I only took the mail, nodded, and closed the door. The world had been invited to laugh at me, and they had accepted the invitation. Mark came by that evening, swagger in his step. Dad, you're famous. 10,000 views now. People can't get enough. We should do a series. The Old Man Chronicles. Think of the ad money. He laughed, poured himself a drink. Don't look so sour. This is how the world works now. Content, clicks, laughs. Better than sitting in silence, right? I stood at the window, looking out at the fading light. Silence, I said, can be heavier than laughter. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. He finished his drink, clapped my shoulder, and left. That night, I couldn't sleep. The clock ticked loud. The house creaked. My heart kept time with the silence. At 2 a.m., I rose, went to the study, and opened the box once more. I held the envelope. The paper trembled faintly in my hands. I read her handwriting again. Thomas. Nothing more on the front, just my name. I whispered into the dark. They think it's a joke. They think I'm the fool. But you knew, didn't you? You knew it would come to this. The house was quiet. The box was not. I replaced the envelope, closed the lid, and set the key on top. The beat inside me was no longer patient. It was ready. The next family gathering came faster than I expected. Mark called it a celebration dinner for his promotion. Everyone's coming, he said cheerfully. We'll make it fun. Fun. When I arrived, the coffin sat in the living room again. This time they had painted words across the lid in white paint. Reserved. The laughter started the moment I walked in. Phones up. Videos rolling. Come on, Dad, Mark called. It's tradition now. I walked past him without a word, sat in my chair, folded my hands. The chatter dimmed. Uneasy glances passed around the room. For the first time, my silence was louder than their jokes. Clara cleared her throat. Maybe we should. Mark cut her off. Don't spoil it. He loves it, really. Don't you, Dad? I looked at him. My face was calm. My voice even. I loved once. Not this. The room stilled. The cake sat untouched. The coffin loomed, cheap paint glaring in the light. And in my pocket, the key pressed against my leg, heavy as stone. The gift was waiting. Soon I would unwrap it. And when I did, the silence would not end. They kept the coffin in my living room like a trophy. I moved it back to the garage at dawn. The air was cold. The handles cut into my fingers. The wood scraped across the floor and made a low, long sound. I set it against the wall beside the rake and the old ladder. I stood there a moment and looked at it the way you look at a bad picture you didn't hang yourself. Across the street, Mr. Jensen watered his roses. He paused, hose in hand. "Morning, Thomas." "Morning." He eyed the coffin, then me. "Quite a decoration." "It won't be for long," I said. He nodded once. He didn't ask. He is an old man. Old men learn not to touch a live wire with words. Inside, the house felt lighter. The carpet held a dark mark where the coffin had sat. I ran my palm over the spot. The fibers lay flat, then rose back slow. Some marks fade, some don't. I could live with both. I made tea, carried the cup to my study, and set the wooden box on the desk. The key lay next to it, small and bright. I could feel its teeth even through my skin. I opened the lid. The old paper smell rose, dry and warm like a bookshop in winter. The envelope with my name sat on top. Under it, letters with dates. Under those, papers I had kept when others threw theirs away. Copies of bank slips. Notes from years when money went missing from my pocket and turned up as new tires on Mark's car. A page where I had written, in plain numbers, the mortgage payments I made when he was between jobs. I never told him I had covered it. He told people he fought through on grit. It was fine. I let him have his story. There were others. Receipts for Clara's surgery when her insurance used the word deny. A thick card for my grandson's school, stamped with a seal, where I had set aside a fund in the boy's name the day he was born. I made deposits each birthday. I never missed one. The fund could pay for school, or a shop, or time. Time was worth more than anything. I touched the edge of the envelope again. My wife's hand on the front, the strong curve of the T, the firm cross of the H. She had told me, long before she got sick, keep copies of The Quiet Love. One day, noise will try to erase it. I had done as she asked. Not to win, to remember. The phone buzzed. A message from Emma. "Can we borrow the coffin again next weekend?" People loved it. "We're doing a part 3. I stared at the words. I watched them sit there like fruit left out too long. I put the phone face down. I breathed in. I breathed out. I took 3 plain envelopes from the desk drawer and wrote names on them in thick, simple letters. Mark, Emma, Clara. I slid thin stacks into each one. Not the whole story, just the parts that belonged to each of them. For Mark, the mortgage payments, the text he sent to a friend saying, "Old man won't notice," the photo of the coffin in my living room with Lowell written under it, the list of money I had lent and he had promised to pay back and then forgot. For Emma, screenshots of the posts, the comments, and one simple page with my wife's small note to her, from the year Emma joined the family, "Please protect the soft parts of my son's father." For Clara, the hospital papers, the note I had written in the waiting room, the receipt I never gave her, the one with the amount she had cried over alone in the night. I sealed the envelopes. The glue tasted old and bitter. I set them side by side. Their weight looked small. Their work would be heavy. By noon, the sky dimmed. A wind moved down the street. The elm behind my house hissed. I put on my coat and walked to the copy shop on Main. The bell over the door clanged too loud when I went in. A young man with a nose ring sat behind the counter, clicking on a screen with a bored finger. "Copies?" he asked, not looking up. "Clean scans," I said. "Good paper." He glanced at the stack I set down and then looked at me proper. His gaze shifted when he saw the old pages. He didn't make a joke. He nodded. "I'll do them right." He fed each page through a machine that hummed and flashed. The smell of warm paper filled the room. He lined up the copies, squared the corners, slipped them into new sleeves. He handed them back like a waiter handing a hot plate. "You want them bound?" he asked. "No," I said. They need to move. He put a rubber band around each set. Your name? Thomas. He wrote it on a small sticky note and pressed it to the top. Good luck, Thomas. Thank you, I said. He didn't know what for. It didn't matter. At home, I slid the fresh copies into the wooden box under the old ones. I closed the lid and pocketed the key. I looked at the clock. The hands moved without fuss. A knock at the door. Clara! She stood with a casserole and a foil pan because she is the kind of person who cannot come empty-handed. You don't have to bring food, I said. I didn't bring it for you, she said. I brought it for my hands. We sat at the kitchen table. The foil wrinkled under her fingers. They asked me to help with part 3, she said, making quotes in the air. I said no. Good, I said. She looked at my face for a long time. You're doing something. I am, I said. You'll be kind, she said. It was not a question, it was a wish. I will be true, I said. Sometimes they look the same from far away. Up close, you can tell. She nodded. She blinked fast. Do you need me? Yes, I said. Saturday, bring your voice, and bring the boy. My boy? Your boy, I said, and his mother if she will come. She will, Clara said. She has eyes. She placed her hand on the wooden table. And Thomas, she added, don't let them ask you to climb in. I won't, I said. After she left, I stood in the doorway and watched the street. A dog pulled a man down the sidewalk, leash tight, nose to ground. A woman carried 3 bags of groceries and paused to set them on the curb and rest her wrists. When she lifted them again, I stepped out and took one without asking. Thank you, she said. They're heavier than they look. Most things are, I said. She smiled in that tired way people do when truth lands in the middle of a day, as plain as bread. Evening. The sky went purple. I turned on the porch light and listened to the moths do their small, foolish dance. Mark's car rolled in late. He didn't come in. He texted from the driveway. Remember Saturday? Big laugh incoming. I typed back. I'll be ready. The phone pinged at once. That's the spirit. I set the phone face down again. The key in my pocket pressed a new bruise into my thigh. I did not mind. Saturday came with bright sun and a hard blue sky. The air smelled like grass. The banner was already up when I arrived. Part 3. Big letters in gold. A little skull sticker in the corner. The coffin stood in the living room, lid cracked open like a mouth about to tell a lie. People came with phones and jokes ready. We'll trend today, someone said. He's a good sport, someone else answered. The laugh that followed sounded dry, like old paper. I carried the wooden box in under my arm. No one noticed. I set it on a shelf in the study and locked the door. Clara arrived with her boy. He is 15 and taller than his mother already. He hugged me without a word. He looked at the coffin and looked away, his mouth set tight. What's in the box? He asked when we stood in the study a minute later. Gifts, I said. For us? For everyone, I said. How many? As many as it takes, I said. He nodded, as if that made sense. Youth can hold a lot of sense without asking for labels. He touched the lid with the tips of his fingers. He felt the same weight I felt. He left his hand there, then pulled it back and put both hands in his pockets, like boys do when they have too many feelings and no safe place to set them. In the other room, Mark tapped a glass with a spoon. The high ping cut the air. Gather up, part 3, laughter answered. Feet moved. The room filled. I stood in the doorway of the living room. Mark wore a paper hat that read director. Emma held a phone gimbal with a little blue light. My grandson sat on the rug with a balloon in his hand, his eyes on me, not the balloon. He looked worried. He is 8. He should not have to look worried. Mark spread his arms. Friends, family, fans. Fans. He said it like a man who believes his own mirror. As you know, Dad turned 65. We decided to help him embrace it. Today, one last test drive. He pointed at the coffin. Dad, we added a cushion this time. Premium! Laughter. He patted the lid. It made a hollow drum sound. He looked at me. Step right up. The phones came up like a wave. The blue light on Emma's phone stared at me like an eye. I stepped forward. I put my hand on the lid. I pushed it open. Inside, the cushion was thin and cheap. The lining had a tear in one corner. I could see the wood beneath. a small nail stuck up, head bright, waiting for skin. "Do it!" someone called. "Come on, Dad," Mark laughed. "Let's go, old man." I looked at his face. His smile had a hard edge now, like a blade dulled by too much cutting. I lifted my hand from the lid and closed it. The click was soft and sharp at once. "Not today," I said. Groans, booing. They tried to make it a game. They tried to turn me into a player who had missed his cue. Mark leaned in, still smiling, but his eyes had no light. "Dad," he said, voice low, "don't spoil it." "Bring the box," I said. "What box?" "The one in the study." He blinked. He frowned. He bought himself 2 seconds. Then he turned to Emma. "Go grab it." Emma made a face like she didn't take orders. Then she saw mine. She went. The room waited. Feet shifted. Someone laughed too loud at nothing. The laugh died fast. Emma came back with the box. She set it on the coffee table like she was putting down something ugly. "What's this?" Mark said. He tried to grin again and failed. "A gift," I said. "From me." "We already gave you yours," he said, and slapped the coffin. He meant to make the room laugh. No one did. A balloon popped in the corner with a small gasp. Heads turned. Eyes came back to the box. I put my palm on the lid. The wood was warm under my skin. "Sit," I said. People sat, phones lowered. Even Emma's blue light dipped. Mark stayed standing, arms crossed, chin up. I opened the lid. The old paper smell rose, cut through the sugar and the perfume and the smell of meat. It smelled like a library and a fire, and winter mornings with the sun low and calm. I took out 3 plain envelopes and set them on the table. Mark, Emma, Clara. The names looked like they had been there for years. In a way, they had. Mark snorted. "What is this, homework?" He reached for his own. I put my hand on it first. He stopped. "You open when I say," I said. The room heard my voice. They leaned in. They felt the change. He pulled his hand back slow. "Okay," he said. The word sounded like metal sliding across stone. I took out a 4th envelope with no name and slid it under the others. Then I took out the letter with my name and laid it on top of the box. My wife's hand watched the room from the front of the paper. Her strong T stood up like a fence post. I did not open it. Not yet. I closed the lid but left my palm on the box. "You've asked me to climb into your joke," I said, calm and even. 3 times now. You've called it love. You've called it fun. You've asked the world to point and laugh. You used my name as a toy. I let that sit. The room shifted, slow, like a big animal in tall grass. "Today," I said, "I give you something back. Today, you open what you gave up when you chose laughter over love." Mark rolled his eyes for show. No one joined him. He let his eyes come back to me. There was a tremble at the corner of his mouth now. Only a line. It was enough. "Clara," I said. She reached for her envelope. She opened it slow, careful, like she was afraid of tearing the inside. Her fingers shook once. She set each paper on her knees. Hospital paper. A receipt. My note from the waiting room. She pressed her lips together. Her throat worked. She whispered, "You paid for this." "Yes," I said. "You never told me," she said. "You were busy healing," I said. She laughed. One short, wet sound. "You old man." She wiped her eye with the heel of her hand and shook her head. "You old, stubborn, quiet man." She held the papers to her chest for a moment and then set them back down like a bird she was not ready to let go of yet. "Emma," I said. She opened hers, frown deepening as she read, the posts, the comments. The paper with my wife's small note, "Protect the soft parts of my son's father." Emma's face went from hard to lost to something I hadn't seen on her face in years. "Sorry." She touched the note with her fingers like it might burn or bless. She started, then stopped. She looked at Mark. He avoided her eyes. She looked at me. "I thought it was just content," she said. The word small now, not shiny. "I forgot there's a person behind a phone." "You remember now," I said. She nodded. Her shoulders dropped. She tucked the note into her sleeve. like a girl might tuck a secret into her pocket. She held the rest of the papers flat on her knees. She didn't look up again. She read them twice. "Mark," I said. He took his envelope like a man takes a tool he doesn't know how to use. He ripped the flap. Papers slid into his palms. He read the first page and smirked. "So what? You kept receipts." He read the second. The smirk bent. He read the third and blushed high on the cheeks. He flipped to the last page and froze. The text message. His words. "Old man won't notice." He looked at me then, not like a son looks at a father, but like a boy looks at a wall that just stood up in front of him. "This is low," he said, grasping for high ground. "Keeping things like this. Who does that?" "A man who knows laughter can be a knife," I said. "A man who has been cut before." He tossed the papers back on the table and leaned on his hands. "You want to shame me? You brought everyone to see it? You're no better than me." "I invited you home," I said. "You brought the crowd." No one laughed. Not even the ones who laughed at everything. The room had lost its taste for that sound. I tapped the unnamed envelope on the table. "This is for the room," I said. I slid it open and pulled out a single sheet. I held it up. The seal on the top left caught the light. A simple page. Plain words. Heavy meaning. "Today," I said, "you asked me, again, to climb in. Instead, I will open this." I waved to the page once. "It is a list. It is the path of money from these hands to this family. It is the names of the things laughter tried to erase." I began to read. Not the numbers. Not all of them. Just names. Mortgage, 2011. Braces, 2014. Truck tires, 2015. Rent, 2016. Rent again, 2016. Grandson's school fund, every year. I set the paper down. You did not need to know those things. I needed to remember them. Now you know them too. The room moved in a slow wave. People shifted on chairs. Someone stood and then sat again. My grandson slid closer to his mother. He looked at me like a boy looks at a light switch when a room goes dark and then bright again. He looked grateful for light. Mark laughed a thin, sharp laugh that hurt the ear. "So you paid some bills. You want a medal?" "No," I said. "I want quiet." I touched the box. "And I want to unwrap the real gift." He frowned. "What gift?" The letter with my name lay on top. I picked it up. I ran my thumb under the flap. The paper peeled slow, like the skin of a small fruit. I unfolded the page. My wife's handwriting filled it in clean lines. I did not read it out loud. I read it with my eyes and my hands and my breath. It said what it needed to say. It told me what to do. It had waited 10 years to be opened. It did not rush. It did not shout. When I finished, I folded it and slid it back into the envelope. I placed it under my palm. The room leaned in. "What did she say?" someone whispered. "What is it?" "Your mother," I said to Mark, and my voice went softer without my asking it to, "asked me to give you a gift when noise tried to eat our house." I smiled, a small smile that felt like a door opening. "So I will." I reached into the box and took out one last package. A flat one wrapped in plain brown paper and tied with string. I set it on the table. I did not pull the string yet. "This," I said, "is for the end." Mark scoffed. "More theater." "Yes," I said, "the honest kind." Emma's phone lay face down now. The blue light had gone to sleep. No one else had a phone in the air. Even the boy had set his balloon under his chair and put his small hands on his small knees, ready to listen the way children do when it matters. I looked at my grandson. "Come here," I said. He stood and came, eyes wide, shoulders square. He stopped at the table. He placed one hand on the box, as if to help me hold it down. His touch steadied me more than the wood. "I have one rule," I said to the room. "You will hear it now and again at the end. One rule for jokes in this house." I let the pause come. I filled it with breath. No joke that takes a person apart. Silence sat in the chairs and on the rug and on the coffee table. It sat on the coffin in the corner like a bird on a dead branch. Mark muttered, "So now we can't have fun?" He said it in that small voice of a man whose words work less than his habit. Have fun, I said. Build, not break. Clara said, soft but clear, Amen. I slid the brown package back into the box and closed the lid. I put my hand on top. Next Saturday, I said, you will all come to dinner here. No coffin, no banners, no phones. Mark started to speak. I raised a finger. He stopped. You will sit at this table, I said, and you will open your last gifts. And then we will be done. What if we don't come? Someone asked in the back. Then I will open them without you, I said, and I will leave them on your door. Emma said, quick, we'll come. Mark looked at her. She did not look back. He looked at his son. The boy looked at me, then at him, then down. Mark's jaw worked. He nodded once, short and angry, like a man nodding at rain. People stood to leave. They did not touch the coffin. They did not point at it or laugh. They moved around it like it was something that could stain. After the last car left, I carried the coffin back to the garage alone. The handles cut my fingers again. The wood scraped. The sound was less loud this time. Maybe the carpet had learned the line. Maybe my ears had. I set it against the wall and covered it with an old sheet. I wrote one word on the sheet with a marker. No. I didn't know who I wrote it for. Maybe for me. In the study, I put the box back on the desk. I took out the last package and weighed it in my hands. It was heavier than it looked. That was right. I slid it under the box. The envelope with my wife's words went on top. Then the key. The next days were quiet. The house held its breath. The elm hissed when the wind moved. The phone buzzed less. When it did, the messages were short. We'll be there. 6, okay? Do you need us to bring anything? I typed, bring your ears. It felt like a joke. It wasn't. Saturday came gray and soft. I set the table with plain plates and the good forks. I made roast chicken because I know how to do that without thinking. The smell filled the house and pushed out the last of the party stink. I opened the window a little and let the air move through. Clara came early. She brought bread. She set it down and stood in the doorway of the study and looked at the box. Ready? She asked. Yes, I said. Emma came with a salad and eyes that had not cried but had thought about it. She placed the bowl on the table and then placed her hand on my arm. I'm sorry, she said without a speech. I gave her a nod. She did not need more. Mark came with his chin high and his son in tow. The boy slipped his hand from his father's fingers at the door and ran to me. He hugged me, hard and fast, like a ball thrown on target. I put my hand on his back and felt the bird bone between his shoulders. I wanted to close my hand there and keep him small. I did not. We ate. We did not talk much. The chicken was tender. The bread was warm. The salad crunched. Knives tapped plates. The world outside made its small sounds. None of us reached for a phone. When the plates were empty and the cups half full, I went to the study. I brought out the box. I set it on the table. I took out the brown package and set it beside the box. I put the envelope with my name on top. I sat. This, I said, touching the package, is for last. Mark rolled his eyes. He didn't mean to. His face had learned it and did it on its own. He caught himself and looked at his hands instead. I took out 4 small boxes wrapped in plain paper. I slid 1 to Clara, 1 to Emma, 1 to the boy, and 1 to Mark. Do not open yet, I said. They waited. I nodded at Clara. Now. She pulled the string, peeled the paper. Inside lay a small worn ring on a simple chain. She covered her mouth with her hand. Mom's, she whispered. Yes, I said. I thought we lost it, she said. I kept it, I said. She put the chain over her head and let the ring rest on her chest. It looked right there. It caught the light. It made its own. Emma, I said. She unwrapped hers. Inside lay the note again, the one from my wife, now in a thin frame, the wood smooth under the glass. Emma's face broke and healed in one motion. She nodded, lips pressed, and held the frame like it was a small window she could carry. Boy, I said, and used his name, because boys are not just boys. They are themselves. Cal. Cal unwrapped his box. Inside lay a small key on a red string and a folded page. He looked at me, eyes huge. What is it? The key fits a lock at the bank, I said. Simple. The page says your name. It says, I started a fund the day you were born. When you are old enough, you will choose what to build with it. He looked at the key like it was a star that had fallen into his hand. He nodded fast. He did not speak. He tucked the key under his shirt and held it there with his palm like you hold a small bird to warm it back to life. "Mark," I said. He pulled the string. He ripped the paper. He stared. Inside lay a small stack of papers tied with thread. The top page said "paid" next to 3 lines he knew well. He flipped the bundle. Every page, the same word, "paid." He did not look up. He did not speak. He turned to the last page and found a blank space with 1 short line above it in my hand. "What you owe to yourself. Say it." He swallowed. He put the bundle down. He did not say anything. I let the quiet sit. It earned its seat at my table. It could stay. Then I put my hand on the brown package. I pulled the string and let it fall. The paper opened with a dry sigh. Inside lay a flat book with a thick cover. I flipped it open. Clear sleeves. In each sleeve a page. On each page, a photo or a paper. A little life museum. Not to brag, to remember. The first picture was me and their mother on the porch with a new plant that we kept alive 25 years. The next was the mortgage receipt with the day we moved in circled. Then the first school receipt. Then a photo of Mark in a cheap suit the year he said he would do better. Then a photo of Clara in a hospital gown with a smile too big for a body that had been cut and stitched and still found a way to smile. I turned the pages slow. The room watched. No one spoke. I could feel their breath rise and fall with mine. I came to the last sleeve and left it closed. A thick, sealed packet sat inside, white and clean. On the front, my wife's hand had written a line, "For the day they forget who you are." The room held its breath. "Open it," Mark said, voice small and sharp at once. I rested my finger on the edge of the sleeve. I did not pull it yet. "Next Saturday," I said. "One last dinner." That night, we opened this. That night, we stopped the count. "The count?" Emma asked. "The joke count," I said. 1, 2, 3, done." She nodded. She was crying now in that quiet way that makes less mess and more truth. Mark looked at the packet like it might bite. He looked at the boy. The boy looked back steady, key under shirt, eyes bright. Mark looked at me. My face did not move. He let his shoulders drop, the way men do when a bag finally slides off and hits the floor. "Okay," he said, and the word sounded like a promise that had been too long on his tongue. After they left, I put the album back in the box and slid the lid. I stood in the doorway a long time and listened to the house breathe. Outside, the elm hissed a song I knew by heart. Down the street, a dog barked twice and quit. In the garage, under the old sheet, the word N-O rested easy. I washed the plates. I dried them. I set them back in their places. I ran a cloth over the table and felt each groove and scar. They were part of the wood now. I did not wish them smooth. I made tea. I carried the cup to the study. I did not sit. I stood with one hand on the box and the other on the back of the chair. The cup warmed my fingers. The lid cooled my palm. Between those, I found the beat again. Not anger, not glee, something older, something patient. A drum far back in a field, steady as steps. There would be one more dinner, one more open, one more quiet. Then we would be done. I blew on the tea. The steam rose in a thin line and then vanished, not gone. Just part of the air. I took a sip and set the cup down. The ring it left on the wood looked like a small moon. The mark would fade. Some don't. I could live with both. The week between dinners felt like a rope pulled tight. Neighbors stopped me in the street, not to laugh now, to ask, carefully, "Are you doing all right?" They had seen less video this time, fewer jokes. The air was shifting. At the store, the cashier scanned my bread and said, "My grandfather would have liked a man like you." She didn't explain. She didn't need to. Clara called every night. She didn't ask questions. She just spoke about small things. Her garden, her boys' homework, the weather. She filled the air so I wouldn't have to. Mark didn't call. His silence was its own sound, a loud one. I spent the days in the study. The box stayed on the desk, the envelope with my name still on top, the thick sealed packet still waiting in the album sleeve. The key never left my pocket. At night, I would set it on the table by my bed and let the moonlight catch it. It glowed like it wanted to be seen. Friday evening, the night before the final dinner, the wind rose. Branches scraped the roof. The elm hissed louder than I'd ever heard it. The house felt like it was holding its own breath. I lit a single lamp and opened the box one last time. I didn't open the packet. I only placed my hand on it, through the sleeve, through the plastic, through the weight of years. My wife's writing stared back at me. For the day they forget who you are. They did, I whispered, but not for long. I closed the lid. The sound was soft, final. Saturday came gray and low. Rain spit on the windows, then cleared, then spit again. The ground smelled of wet earth. I roasted chicken again, slow and even, letting the smell fill every corner. I baked bread the way Clara had shown me. I set the table with the same plates, the same forks, the same rhythm as the week before. At 6 sharp, Clara arrived with her boy. They carried nothing but themselves. She kissed my cheek. He hugged me, tight and fast. Emma came next, alone. She had no salad this time. No phone in her hand either. She set her coat on the rack and placed her hand on my arm again. This time, she didn't say sorry. She only looked at me and nodded once. Mark came last. He carried a bottle of wine like a shield. His son trailed behind him, eyes on the floor. Mark's face was stiff, jaw locked, a smile carved on that didn't reach his eyes. We ate in near silence. The food went fast, but the air was slow. Every fork scrape rang like a bell. Every cough echoed. When the plates were cleared, I stood. I went to the study. I carried the box out. The weight was the same. My arms were steadier this time. I set it on the table. I opened it. The album lay inside, the sealed packet still in its sleeve. I lifted it out and set it down, center of the table. The writing glowed under the lamp. For the day they forget who you are. No one spoke. The rain tapped on the window. My grandson shifted in his chair, his small hand creeping toward his mother's. She held it. Mark swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed sharp. He tried to make a joke. So, story time? His voice cracked on the last word. Not story, I said. Truth. I slid the packet closer to me. I reached for the edge. My thumb pressed the seal. The paper gave a little. Emma whispered, "Are we ready?" "Yes," I said. "No," Mark said quickly. He put his hand on the packet. His palm covered the writing. His knuckles were white. "Not yet." The room stilled. "Why not?" Clara asked. Mark's voice was raw. "Because if he opens it, there's no going back." "That's the point," I said. Mark's eyes darted around the table, searching for someone to back him. No one did. He looked at his son. The boy didn't look back. He only stared at my hands, waiting. Mark's breath came hard. "Dad, please." The word please was new in his mouth. It didn't fit. It wobbled. I pulled the packet back toward me. His hand slid off. He let it fall to the table with a soft slap. The room held its breath. I placed both hands flat on the paper. My palms covered my wife's words. I could feel her there, under my skin, steady, guiding. "This," I said softly, "is the last gift. You gave me a coffin. I give you this. You laughed. I will not. You mocked. I will not. You forgot. I will not." The rain hit harder, drumming the window. The light flickered once. I took the letter opener from the box, slipped it under the seal, and cut. The sound was sharp, clean, paper split. The packet sagged open. Pages slid out, thick, heavy, neat. They spread like a fan across the table. The first page faced up. My wife's handwriting filled the top. "To those who would forget Thomas Carter, here is who he is." The room froze. I began to read. The first line was short. "Thomas is a man who builds." I read it out loud. My voice was steady. The room leaned closer. "He builds with his hands and with his time. He builds even when no one claps. He builds even when people laugh. If you forget him, remember this. Look at what is standing." I turned the page. My wife's writing filled the next one in clean lines. "He paid when the world said no. He showed up when others slept. He carried, quietly. He made a home out of wood and breath. If you forget him, look at your own steps. Some of them were on floors he fixed." I set that page down and lifted the next. It was not a letter. It was simple paper with simple words that carried weight. A note from the bank, dated last week, with my name and another name, Clara. It said the account with the boys' fund was now larger, and it would be his when he came of age. It said Clara would watch it with me until then. A short letter from the clerk's office, stamped, that said the house's papers were signed. If anything happened to me, the house would be held for the boy and for Clara. No one else could sell it. No one could use it for content. The word wasn't on the page. It didn't have to be. Emma covered her mouth. Clara stared at me and shook her head once, hard, like a person trying not to cry at the wrong time. The boy gripped the key under his shirt and breathed fast. Mark's jaw worked. You can't just... I lifted my palm and he stopped. I read my wife's next page. If they turn you into a toy, speak once. Speak plain. Then give your gift and be done. Choose the ones who protected the soft parts. Choose the child who still can. Do not argue with anyone who wants a camera more than a person. I set the page down. My hand found the last sheet before the end. It was short. My wife's voice looked like it had come from the last day she had strength. Thomas, forgive where you can, but make room for quiet. Do not let laughter write your name. If they ask you to climb into a joke, give them a door instead. I put that page aside. The room didn't move. There were 3 small things left in the packet. I took the first and passed it to Emma. It was a printed note she had already seen framed, but this one had a line added in my wife's hand at the bottom. If you ever forget, read this out loud. Emma nodded without looking up. I took the second and slid it to Clara. It was a tiny photograph from years ago. Me in a plastic chair at the hospital, head down, both hands around a paper cup, the ring light on my wife's finger catching sun through the window. Clara pressed it to her chest. The last thing was a single folded page with a sentence in my wife's hand at the top and a blank space under it. I read the sentence. For the one who laughs the loudest, if you wish to be a builder again, say it. I slid the paper across to Mark and set a pen on top. He didn't touch it. He sat back, arms crossed, face set, the old grin twitching like a habit that wanted to live. He looked at the boy. The boy looked back and shook his head just once. Small, final. Mark stared at the packet, at the album, at the box. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at me. You set me up, he said. His voice was raw. I said a table, I said. You brought a coffin. Silence sat with us. It did not feel like a wall. It felt like a floor. Mark looked at the pen again. He laughed once, a dry sound that hurt his own ears. He picked up the pen. He lowered it. He put it down. He pressed both his hands flat on the table and pushed himself up to stand. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Then start there, I said. He swallowed. He looked at Clara. I'm sorry, he said to her, for taking the money, for pretending I didn't know. He looked at Emma. I'm sorry for the video. For calling it just fun when it was a knife. He looked at his son and had to pause because his throat closed. He forced it open. I'm sorry for making you watch me be small. Finally, he looked at me. Dad, I'm sorry, he said. The words sat heavy. For the coffin, for all of it. I wanted to be seen. I made you a show so I didn't have to look at myself. I didn't speak. I waited. He lowered himself back into the chair as if he had aged 10 years in a minute. He picked up the pen again. He wrote one line under my wife's sentence. His hand shook, but the letters were clear. I want to build. I will not make jokes that cut. I will take down what hurts. I will do the heavy lifting. He put the pen down. He pushed the page back to me. He didn't ask for applause. No one gave it. Then start, I said. How? He asked, hoarse. Carry that thing out of my house, I said, and nodded at the corner. The coffin. Black under the lamp. Now? He said. Now, I said. He stood. He walked to it. He lifted the end alone and staggered. The boy jumped up and grabbed the other side. Emma rose to hold the door. Clara moved the rug with her foot so it wouldn't catch. No one filmed. The only sounds were wood on wood, breath, shoes on floor. They got it into the garage. It knocked the ladder once and made a hollow sound. Mark set his end down, hands on his knees, breath high and fast. The boy stood up straight, chest out, key under his shirt. Where? Mark asked. The dump, I said. Today. He nodded. He didn't make a joke. He wiped his palms on his jeans. He looked small and right-sized all at once. We came back to the table. The packet sat open, empty now. The album lay beside it, pages in order, life in order. I slid the letter with my name back into its envelope and tucked it under the box lid. I closed the box and rested my palm on it. "That's the last thing," I said. "No more parts, no more a series. Next Saturday you come for dinner because you are hungry. That's all." The boy lifted his hand. "Can we keep the key?" he asked, as if someone might take it. "It is yours," I said. Emma touched the frame on her lap. "And this?" "It is yours," I said. Clara fingered the ring at her throat. "And this?" "It was always yours," I said. Mark looked at the blank space under his sentence. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't say he deserved anything. He looked tired. He looked like the end of a storm. "Tomorrow," he said. "I'll take the videos down." "Tonight," Emma said, firm. He nodded. "Tonight." "And you go to Mr. Jensen," Clara added, "and to the church group. And you say the same words you said here, not bigger, not smaller." Mark nodded again. He didn't argue. He didn't try to polish it. His son slid his small hand into his. Mark held it like a man holds a railing after a long stairway. We ate bread and leftover chicken until the plates were clean. We washed them, we dried them, we put them away. The boy asked if he could help me put the box back. I let him. He carried one corner, I carried the other. We set it on the study desk like a stone being set where it belongs. He looked at me. "Grandpa, am I allowed to open it when I'm older?" "Yes," I said, "if you need to remember." "And if I don't?" "Then leave it closed," I said. "And make your own." He smiled, the kind of smile that makes the skin under the eyes crinkle just a little. He ran back to the kitchen. The house emptied slowly. Hugs at the door were quiet and long. No one said, "Content." No one said, "Part 4." The rain had stopped. The street shone under the lamp like new paint. When I was alone, I set water to boil. It took its time. The surface trembled, then rolled. I turned the flame off and poured. I sat and let the cup warm my fingers. In the garage, a car door shut. An engine started. Tires rolled away. The word "NO" on the sheet moved in the breeze and settled again. I sipped my tea. The beat inside my chest slowed. Not gone, just steady. They gave me a coffin. I gave them a door. The room held. The quiet held. That was enough.
If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe and join Taste of Revenge family, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on one of the boxes on the right. Thank you for watching to the end.